Hey guys, Feuerrm here, and today I'm going to be showing you the Bugatti La Voiture Noire at max in multiplayer in Asphalt 9. These races were given to me by KUURO, and he put all 4 of his epics toward acceleration, so that stat is golden maxed, and I personally think that that is a great idea. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already, and be sure to check out my new Feuerrm Clips channel, where I upload the best moments from my past streams and videos, and I hope you enjoyed this video. We start off with a pretty crazy stunt in Nevada. Thankfully, KUURO manages to save himself, doesn't wreck, and he is in a very good position to continue gaining ground. Now, the Bugatti LVN is known generally as the most expensive car in Asphalt 9, and for good reason. I made a video a while back talking about its Drive Syndicate event when that first came out, saying that you would need to spend minimum $400 on the game to be able to unlock this car. That is if you had all of the other cars already completely maxed that were required in the Drive Syndicate, and hardly anybody would have had those. On the other side, if you had no cars in the event, which also is quite unlikely, I would say for most people, you'd have to spend over $1,000, $1,150 to be exact on average. So if you were in my case and you had maybe 1 or 2 cars maxed, like the Aranera in my case, you could probably expect to spend around $1,000 to be able to unlock this car. And you would have to spend close to $4,000 to completely max it out. Now, this is very similar in price to maxing out the Koenigsegg Jesko, which I think was $4,400 or something like that. The big difference between the 2 cars, and I don't want you guys to miss this, is that with the Jesko event, you could, if you had 136,000 tokens, max the Jesko for free without spending any money on the game. That's a ton of tokens, but it could be done. This 4,000 tokens for the Bugatti LVN is money that you would have to spend regardless of how many tokens you had, because there are only a certain number of relay packs in the event, and beyond those relay packs there was no way to get more syndicate coins with tokens. So after you spent those few thousand tokens on the relay packs for those Drive Syndicate coins, you would be completely out of luck if you needed more, which you would in order to get this car, and even to get the GT by Citroën, you'd have to spend an average of I think $40 or something like that. All this to say, the LVN is an extremely expensive and exclusive car in this game, and that is why very few people have it. You don't see very many in multiplayer, and why it has taken me so long to find players who had gotten this car and were willing to record races in it for me. And I'm sure the question that has been on most people's minds since this car came out is the car worth it? Well, I aim to answer that in this video, and in this race we, well, barely beat a VLF Force 1. That should give you a little bit of an inkling as to how this car does. Yes, KUURO did hit a bust in that race, but you would think that for a car this expensive, you would already be so far ahead that you wouldn't have to worry about things like that. Well, yes and no. The LVN is the 3rd best car in the game. It is better than the Chiron and the Regera and the Bailey Blade and the Trion Nemesis, but not by a long shot. This car's top speed is pretty much the same as that of the Bugatti Chiron, and in many ways, it drives and handles like it from what I have seen. Overall, I'm pretty sure that this car could be considered just a slightly buffed Chiron. Which makes you think, well, the Chiron was one of the earliest and one of the best special events, and probably one of the higher-end S-Class cars that the highest number of people have high-starred. I got it at 4 stars when it first came out. To get this car to 4 stars, you'd have to spend a few $1,000s. And I have now 5-starred my Chiron and am well on my way to 6-starring it, and the same deal with the Regera. And speaking of the Bugatti Chiron, that was actually the car that was directly behind KUURO in this race, and you can see it was a lower ranked one too, so the Chiron and the LVN can compete very well against each other. The Jesko and the Tuatara are also better than the LVN. They are faster by, I want to say 30 or so miles per hour, give or take a little bit, which, while you usually don't get up to that speed, can be quite significant in events particularly. I think the LVN definitely shines more in multiplayer than in events, and I believe it is definitely one of the best multiplayer cars in the game. However, we still have to come back to the question of, is it worth it? Because yes, it is a really good car, there is no denying that at all. But you would just think that a car that you would have to spend $1,000 to unlock and $4,000 in order to max out would be the absolute king of the game and would wreck everything. And as you can see in these races, that's not the case. Yes, it's an extremely good car, but you could probably do the same thing with a Bugatti Chiron, which I'm sure a lot of you guys have. Now, when we knew this Cars Drive Syndicate was coming, and before it came out though, we were hoping that it was going to be more like the Rimac C2's Drive Syndicate and not so much like the Jesko's. Unfortunately, as you've seen, we got a even worse event than the Jesko's. It appears that the LVN has some issues with trying to flip on its top. In this race, KUURO comes in a close second to another LVN and beats a Regera. So back to what I was talking about before, about the same time that the LVN Drive Syndicate came out for Windows, iOS, and Android, the Rimac C2 special event was run on Switch. About a year after it ran on all the other platforms, just like most other things on Switch. But that, of course, wasn't the problem, because Switch players were used to that. The issue was they made the event much harder. So much so that you could not even buy any relay packs in it, and because of that, you had to pay $10 just to start the event to get the Feuerrm, because with average luck, there's no way you'd have enough Drive Syndicate coins to be able to do that. So that was a giant bummer for people, and unfortunately, because Gameloft deliberately made the Rimac Drive Syndicate that much harder, I do not think that we will have another easy or really good Drive Syndicate again, unless the car is just no good. Now, I am completely happy for Gameloft to prove me wrong, make a really good Drive Syndicate like the Rimac one was on Windows, iOS, and Android, and if they do, I'll sing its praises. I mean, I always try to tell things exactly as they are. If they're good, I talk about the good stuff. If they're bad, I talk about the bad stuff. That's one thing I've always tried to do on this channel, is give all sides of everything that I can, and just try to be fair with all of my information that I give, because I feel like that is better for everyone involved, and it leads to a lot more constructive conversations in the future. We're pretty certain that a fourth Drive Syndicate is going to be coming sometime this year, and people have asked me when it's going to be. I would say either next update, so late summer, or in the holiday season like the last one was. That's honestly when I would expect it more likely, but we will have to see. Now it's time for me to give my general review about the Bugatti LVN, and when I do these reviews at the end of my video, I always try to come at it just with looking at the car itself objectively, outside of how hard it is to get and all of that stuff. So just in terms of this car stats and its driving, it looks quite fun. I have driven it at max. I got a chance to do that before. It pretty much drives like a slightly more nimble Bugatti Chiron. It feels like a buffed version of that car in some sense. The top speed, acceleration, handling, and drifting are all quite good, although the nitro is probably its weakest point, but this aspect is not unlike any of the other high-end S-Class cars. So guys, thank you all so much for watching, and thank you to KUURO for these races. Please like the video if you've enjoyed, and consider subscribing for more Asphalt and other games content, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye!